Good evening and welcome to the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners June meeting. I'm Neil Jamison, and if those of you folks who would want to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, start your meeting. Oh, excuse me, wrong meeting.
First item on our agenda is the approval of the May 8th, 2023 minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Our second item tonight is an informational report on a financial certificate. And Jim?
This is just an item that luckily we receive annually, but it's not a given. There is some work that's, a lot of work behind the scenes done by Alex and his crew in the finance office to get the county to the recognition of Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. So this letter is here recognizing that the 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report met the letter of their law, and they were recognizing Cumberland County for a job well done. So I just wanted to let the commissioners know that at least up to 2021, we're in good hands on our financial reporting. Next year, hopefully, we will be reporting out on 2022.
Thank you. Comments from the public? Any comments from the public tonight? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
And do we need to recite into the record the items or not?
Well, 23044 through 23052.
Moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Do we have any questions or comments?
My comment would be, is I would like to see, well, maybe in October or somewhere that we could sit down and have a workshop, or maybe on these were contracted summer towns, you know, to get to, you know, to understand, you know, with how those work, and because you know, to me, it's a concern, and I would just like to see some more of a dialogue on that, so maybe come October, when we have to prepare all this stuff to go out, you know, to the towns and stuff, or that we could have, you know, some dialogue with the
So
sheriff's office.
prospective for the calendar year 2024, talking about those.
That's, yeah,
those
yep,
contracts.
yep.
Very good,
So,
Sue.
yep.
Well noted. Any other? Jim?
Mr. Chairman, could we just take a separate vote when we get a chance on 23052? I think some of the people that were involved in that are here tonight.
Certainly. And so, any other comments or questions regarding 23044 through 23051? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. And Commissioner Cludier, 23052.
Move passage of 23052.
Second.
And discussion. Go ahead, Jim.
I think some of the people that are the guilty parties when it comes to an $80,000 donation to our public safety operation for some laudatory purposes here, and I hope someone will step to the mic and tell us a little bit about it. And recognize the people who are the guilty parties.
So I'll let Reverend Jeff talk about it, but back in January, I got a text asking if we would take a donation around Easter, that they would do an offering. Apparently, they do it Easter and Christmas, and generally, there are like 3 services, and it would be somewhere in the round of $80,000, and I thought there was a zero missing, or too many zeros, I should say, because I've never been at a church where you could get $80,000. But So Reverend Jeff reached out to me, and I said, yeah, as long as it's a donation, we just cannot solicit. So, Rev, you want to take it from here?
It's not complicated, and bottom line is working with community and in going out in community and building relationships. This is one of the things that's happened and developed over time. I worked with The Point. I've had them as volunteers over the years who have come into the jail. They see the things that happen at the jail, the programs at the jail. They see the things that are happening that we're dealing with in the community, with recidivism rate, with drug addiction, with people trying to get their lives back on track. And they see that not only that spiritually needs are being met, but also that we have programs in the jail that are being met. And that's why Jen Galetta is here. Jen. And on the program side, and again, and Jen will tell you a little bit about what she's doing, but this is something where you've got community, they see things that are happening even in the jail, and they are moved, and they want to help, and they want to do things to better the life of those who are incarcerated and trying to get back into society and get back on track. And so, again, Jen, you can tell a little bit about some of the programs and what we've got going on.
Hi, thanks for having us. My name is Jen Galetta. I work at the jail. I'm a reentry specialist. I've been doing that job for about 5 years. Prior to that, we did not really have any kind of program that was working with helping people return to the community. That our program has grown. There's 3 of us now that work specifically in reentry. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a different experience when people are leaving our facility. I worked at the jail since '06, and it used to be that when someone was released, they were just sent out the door. You know, I'd be coming into work and I'd see that door open and someone would come out, and maybe there was someone there to greet them, you know, a family member, maybe there wasn't. And what we're trying to do is catch these people when they're inside. We meet with them, we find out what their needs are. Some people, the need is as simple as, I need a bus pass to get back to Aroostook County, which is something that we do. And for other people, it's a pretty extensive plan in terms of housing and making appointments. We have, as I'm sure you guys know, we're now doing MAT, the medically assisted treatment at the jail, and so that number keeps growing. So one of us, Chelsea, the MAT coordinator, she coordinates getting those people with a new provider if they need it when they leave. You know, and we have worked with some grants, and we do have some grant money that covers some things, but grants always end. So any money that we could, you know, this is just a huge gift. And, you know, just some of the things that we'd be using it for, housing. Right now, we have a grant that does provide some housing money for people when they're first released. It's very limited on the amount, and it's limited on how long we can use it. So that would give us some flexibility. Our grant currently does not provide any money for us to give phones. We've had a few donated, and we're pretty selective about who we give them to, you know, as far as their need. So that would be something we'd use them for. Bus passes, local bus passes, and bus passes to help people return to the community where they come from. Because typically when people are released, they're not necessarily a Portland resident. They need to get somewhere. We have a clothing bank that we, you know, have donations, and we've used a little bit of money for that. That's huge. I know it's interesting, but what I've seen over the years working at the jail is people do not go out of the jail thinner than when they came in, you know, which is a good sign. People are coming in, they're getting healthier, they're eating. So a lot of times they don't have any clothes, if any, that they came in with, but any that fit. Hygiene items, you know, sometimes people are going to a sober living house and they literally do not even have you know, they don't have anything. So hygiene item, bar soap, shampoo, things like that, toothpaste, toothbrush. We do give a release bag when people leave the facility. That was grant funded a few times, but that money has come to an end. And that we are given Narcan by the city of Portland, and we found that people weren't taking it, so we paired it up with a bag that includes like a toothbrush, toothpaste, granola bar, things like that. So it helps put Narcan out with our inmates that are being released. And another thing, you know, Ubers or Lyfts, like if someone is going somewhere that is not a bus route or not a bus pass, to treatment, a lot of times people are going to treatment, and they have to be there at very specific times. So those are just a few of the things that we would be using this money for. And, you know, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Like I said, we're just really trying to create a different experience when people are leaving our facility, in terms of giving them a little bit of a step, you know, towards, in the right direction.
Questions for Jen? Go ahead, Commissioner Gordon.
Jim, how long does this assistance go after they get released?
So a lot of times it's literally once they're released, we've made all the plans and, you know, we get an invoice for housing. Right now, we'll pay for up to 1 month for someone at a sober living facility, sober living house. You know, we work on a MAR certified. We use, you know, the ones that are MAR certified. And so that's as far as we kind of go right now, is in terms of, you know, paying for something for a little bit longer. It's mostly just the literal walk out the door. And they have appointments set up. You know, a lot of times we're lucky and we have community partners. We have Amistad that actually just changed their name to Common Space. We work with PRCC. We have great relationships with both of those community partners, and they will a lot of times have someone that will meet someone when they're leaving if we feel someone's at a risk for not going where they are supposed to be going. And that's been fantastic.
Any other questions or comments?
No?
Go ahead, Commissioner Coogan.
My comment is, I think this is like a really pleasant surprise. And you've articulated, you both have, why it's so important.
Thank you.
And it really does connect with the community, and that congregation is, frankly, is kind of well-known for doing things like that. And it's a very active one in a lot of the social service spheres, so great for you, thanks a lot, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate all your extra efforts on behalf of this population, and these are the stories that a lot of the public or anyone doesn't hear, but it really shines a bright light on the great work you guys are doing. So,
Thank you.
Thank you
all very
Appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you.
Ready for a vote?
Yes. So we'll call the vote on 23052. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Matter carries 5-0. Next item is ARPA business. Jim.
Thank you. As Sandy always catches me for stealing her presentation, I'm going to turn the mic over to her this evening to present the next two items.
Okay. If you want to be that way, Jim. Thanks, Jim. So the item before you today is the Lakes Region Housing Study Contract. This was originally proposed as a package deal back in, before I even started and took over, for Tedford Housing and their Homeless Service Center. So we agreed to provide services and funding for that. And they also had a carve out for a housing study that they were going to do in the Lakes region specific to homeless services and needs. And so as changeover happened at Tedford, there was some shifting, and we took that homeless study on because we wanted to see it come to fruition. And in the moment in time, it wasn't going to happen through Tedford. So we've taken it back, which is why the contract's in front of you for approval today. And that's for us to collect data and study and conduct an analysis of the Lakes region homeless services specific to anyone that's homeless. So that could be chronic homeless or other. And we want to look at sort of what are the reasons behind folks being homeless in the Lakes region. What are their barriers that they face there versus in Portland? Because those are going to be vastly different, right? Something like transportation and breaking down is going to be very different in Portland than it is for someone living in Harrison that has to commute an hour for work. So the study is going to let us know town by town what the needs are, what the land use and housing availability is for those different towns, And then we'll take that data and come up with a plan for how we can help that situation in the Lakes region. I think this is great to do the study now. I wish it was done a little bit earlier, but I think given the influx and the need that's currently happening in Portland, that's going to shift outward into the Lakes region. So this is a really great time for us to be looking at and focusing our attention on, well, how do we achieve this goal in the Lakes region of figuring out what the problem is and trying to work towards a solution. It's not going to tell us we need to do A through Z, but rather, here's what the needs are for this community in this area and what you could possibly do based on the land use that's currently there and sort of what we have for available land use. It doesn't mean that we're going to build a shelter or anything like that, but it's definitely a study for us to use later on for our CDBG funds, our home funds, as well as ARPA funding to figure out where's the need and how do we target that for homeless services. Jeff Levine, you may have known the name Levine Studies, Planning Studies, is who bid on the project. We only had one proposal submitted, so, and he's really great, actually. He worked for the city of Portland for many years with the director of planning and economic development. Really all-around nice guy, but very well-known, understands his stuff. Worked at the state level on the Housing Policy Commission just recently. So great agency, happy that they were the only ones, to be honest, because he does a really good job.
Any questions for Sandy?
I just, I have
Go
a
ahead, Patty.
comment. Thank you for explaining, and first of all, thank you for not letting the ball drop. It sounds like it was kind of tenuous for a bit, but you saw the need, how important it was to kind of assess the Lakes region. And for me to hear about the data that you'll be gathering, the analysis now versus, 5 years from now or even 2 years from now, I think it's really critical, and it's nice to hear about, not nice, but the unhoused population, everyone, kind of just equates it to urban areas, i.e. Portland or South Portland, but it's a matter of the Lakes region needs to have a light shown on it in terms of what's happening in that region. So I'm really pleased to hear about this project and the fact that it kind of sets the stage for us to take a look at the future, hopefully. I think I saw a 20-year timeline, is that right? Or a projection out? How is that data being?
I don't think it's 20 years well, we can say 20, but I think the reality is it's going to shift and change.
Okay.
I think that's what his goal is going to be, but
Sure.
I think the data with any study is usually within 5 to 10
Okay,
years,
that's what I
like realistically.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure anybody knows 20, but
Yeah.
my point is I'm just grateful that you're doing the work and partnering with Jeff, and I think it's going to be a great project. Excited to see the data when it comes.
Yeah.
That's in November?
So we'll have some data points along the way, but the final presentation he's going to give at this point in May
May,
of
okay.
2024 will be the final one. But he's going to try and tackle some of this stuff because, of course, he has other people he has to hire. It's a lot to do. So I wanted it done yesterday, but he gave me.
Thank you.
Mr. Kluter?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad, I share in the thought that I'm glad you picked up a baton that got maybe dropped or at least fumbled a little. And if I remember right, we had dealt with Tedford House, which is has been dealing with homeless issues in the Brunswick area. And at the time, we were really quite pleased that they were willing to kind of shift towards the west as kind of an expansion of their work, and that was part of what this was. We actually, I believe, have funded some construction or operational projects for them in the Brunswick area, and we thought, well, this might someday tell us something that we needed to do in other parts of the county. So I'm glad it's being funded and pushed ahead.
Any other questions or comments for Sandy? So we need approval, right?
Move passage.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the item. Any questions or further discussion? Seeing none, call to a vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Matter carries 5-0. And item 23054, Sandy, you're up again.
So this is the Municipal Water and Sewer Action Plan. Back in November, we had a plan for our Tranche 2 funding, and within that plan was municipal water and sewer grants for the local municipalities and water districts. So that includes Portland Water District, Gray, and Yarmouth Water District as part of that. So we had a total of 8 applicants apply for funding, and we scored those. Those are in your packets that I provided as attachments, all of the applications and the scoring rubric and the scores as well. So, of course, with anything ARPA, we always look at this from initially the onset of what is the most equitable projects that we have and could use the funding. What's the ripple effect for the community benefit of the project that's going to happen, and particularly for whom, the lower income population that we're trying to help and serve. And then for sewer and water, we get to also look at environmental impacts. So which projects are going to be the most sustainable, provide the best environmental impact for our community that's positive, right? And we also look at severity. So does this project have any kind of violations currently in place? So a few people, Bridgeton, Brunswick, Wyndham, had some EPA violations that they're working to clean up and work towards. So those are actually, while they're bad, they're also good. You want to fund something that needs money that's going to support a larger impact for them and that community. So that was the viewpoint that was taken by the ARPA Advisory Committee. And then they scored the applications, which again is in the packet. And they essentially funded the projects that were scored and ranked the highest because that met the scoring criteria. It hit on all of the ARPA requirements. And there was a couple of projects that didn't get funded, and primarily, again, looking at it from that equity lens and severity and environmental impact, where they ranked. And of course, they were a bit lower than everyone else. So any questions about that or anything I may have missed?
Yes. Commissioner Gordon.
You've got a table here, and it seems like, would you explain how these averages work? The higher the average, the more credit they get towards.
Yes, yep. So we had 6 individual folks review it, the AAC, and then we combine all of those scores, and this is the average score amongst all of the reviewers. And they rank them based on, at the bottom here, there's a little table that says scoring criteria. And so that's broken out into project severity and needs, so talking again about, do they have any violations with the EPA? And if so, what they were. Readiness to proceed, do they have a lot of companion funds? Are they good to go? Are we gonna get in the ground quickly to sort of mitigate any issues with our current market and all of those special things? Resilience is, again, about environmental impact. Are we projecting for the future with what we're putting in, or is this just gonna meet a need today that we're gonna have to go back and dig it up later? Sustainability. So a lot of this is about what material we're using. Are we switching away from the type of, I think it's asbestos that flakes off in the piping, right? That kind of stuff. And also evidence of sustainability would be any kind of equipment that they're putting in. Now you have like microchips and stuff that can go in the water and sewer. So things like that in terms of long-term. Due diligence and companion funds is looking at it from how much funding, other funding sources are in the pot. Is there skin in the game for the municipality? Is this moving forward, right? Not gonna be dead in the water. And then the overall project description and evaluation of the project encompasses that view of the lowest quantifiable percentile of people in the community, who's gonna benefit. So is this an area of the community that is the lowest population in terms of income? Or is it a higher income population? And then what ripple effects will it have on the whole community? So Wyndham, for example, by putting in this project and helping them, that's gonna bolster the Lakes region because this design is something that can be reused for other areas that have the same issue of the runoff into the lakes and the contaminants. So, and I guess it's a good one. It's I don't know much about them, but you know, Barry tells me this is the best. It's going to be great. And so it'll be a catalyst, essentially, for other towns to use, too, in Mirror.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Sandy regarding the presentation? Seeing none, call for the
Move passage.
Move passage, right. We need a
Second.
second.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Matter carries. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Our next item, 23055, approval of the 23-24 jail operating budget.
Move passage.
I'll second.
Jim?
Well, I thought we were on a good roll there. Thank you. I'll be brief. As the commissioners are aware, back in May, you workshopped this item on the granular level and fully understand the direction that we're heading in with this budget. This budget is very unique from what you've seen in the past years. We had a lot of hard decisions that needed to be made in developing this budget. We started right off the bat with a $2.5 million hole in our budget because of loss of revenue, both on the federal inmate side and then also what we're estimating coming down from the state aid to the jails through the Department of Corrections. And so with the jail budget being very linear and not a lot of wiggle room in it, we were able to cut back on some lines for a total of about $164,000. That's a far cry from the $2.4 million that we had to actually cut to balance this budget. The only area that we were able to look at is the salary line. And it's no secret that the jail is currently down upwards of 70-plus employees. And we felt as though that would be for a kind of a one-year stopgap so that we hope to get some revenues back into the county coffers for the jail. We will look at unfunding, not cutting, but unfunding, upwards of 48 positions within the jail. That is, we are still committed on hiring 110%. We're still putting our recruiting efforts on warp speed and working as diligently as possible at getting as many corrections officers through the door and qualify for employment here in Cumberland County. But we feel as though to get us through the next year, we needed to do something with the budget to balance it. And 48 positions will go unfunded. That would leave us with about a roster of 88 positions. And to give you some barometer, we're in the low 60s right now. So that does give us a little bit of growth. And like I told the unions, if we get up towards 86, 88 positions, we will sit back down and we will see where the numbers are playing and what direction we're seeing. And if it allows, we'll continue the hiring. There's no sense of turning people away when we need people. And so this budget does include all that. It's pretty straightforward. One new position or classification is added, and it's just converting a sergeant's position that is currently vacant into a lieutenant's position. That lieutenant would be a housing unit manager for the federal inmates. If the federal inmates come back, there are a number of criteria or requests that the Federal Marshal Service has for us upon bringing inmates back in, and that is one of them, having a designated unit manager for the pod that the federal inmates will be in. So with that, like I said, back in May, we went through this pretty in-depth, had a lot of discussion on it, and the commissioners felt comfortable enough moving it forward to this evening. So here to answer any questions that you may have, as well as Alex and the sheriff and the major. Thank you.
Any questions for Jim? Sheriff, would you like to be heard? Any comments?
No, I completely agree. I think that hiring 22 people in a year is a tall order, although there is a little bit of a influx of applicants that look good, but that's a good problem to have. So it makes sense. We've got to cover that gap. The marshals, I don't know when the study's back, but they're looking to start sending inmates our way. I basically told them that by pulling their inmates, they canceled the contract. So as soon as I get guidance on what the per diem rate is, then we'll start taking their inmates back. They seem to think we just put it on pause, but like I told them, you know, when you put your inmates, I think it's a little bit more in the pause. So they are ready to come back in a small group of people as soon as we get the answer on the per diem rate. So,
Any questions for the sheriff?
No.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kevin.
I have a question, one for Jim.
Yes.
Do we know when that study will be back, or did they give you a time frame? I remember you saying something, because it's a very dedicated kind of service, and there aren't that many people, so do you have a time frame?
Yeah, I believe the time frame is late August. As much as we've been hustling to get them information, Alex, just last week, wasn't it, furnished them a bunch of information that they needed to do their calculations. There's a period of time that it's a back and forth between them and the Marshal Service. And so that's where the delay will happen. It won't be on working with the county, it will be working with the Marshal Service. So
Okay.
we're hoping that it's sooner, but they kind of gave us an indication of mid-August to
August.
late August.
Alex, any comments or statements do you want to make about the budget?
No, I think Jim covered it well. And again, this is definitely, most likely, or hopefully, a one-time budget that looks different than years before and after.
Very good. It's been moved and seconded. No further comments or questions. Call the question. All those in favor to approve the 2023-2024 jail budget? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Matter carries. We have a budget. And the next item is 23056, approval of the 23-24 Cross Insurance Arena operations and trustee budgets. Jim, sorry.
Thank you. Again, the commissioners heard Mike LeConte from the general manager of the Cross Insurance Arena back on May 8th in a workshop session. This budget is two budgets, really. It is an operational budget that Mike puts together as the GM for operating the arena over the next year. And there is a trustee budget, which is really leftover items from when the trustees had reigning control of the arena. But just wanted to go down through. No new positions will be added. There is no capital requests being made in this budget. As the commissioners typically see on an annual basis, there is a budgeted loss of $299,000. But like I gave the example to the commissioners back at the workshop, it was just a year ago that the budgeted loss was $980,000. And last June, the arena came in and it was $36,000 to the good. So, you know, when the general manager is putting together a budget 15, 16 months in advance of a full budget year, there's a lot of guesstimation. You never know when that phone's gonna ring, what the next show is gonna be, what that show is. And so the general manager puts forth the best guess and then runs throughout the entire budget year to try to get as many events in that building as possible, all offsetting the initial loss that was projected. So this year, Mike is projecting a $299,000 loss in operations. And I already know that since he built this budget, he's already booked another 4 shows just in August and September, and just 3 in August and 1 in September, I believe. So the phone's still ringing over there. There's a lot of interest in coming to the arena, and so we're looking forward that 299 is going to evaporate pretty quickly. Our hopes are. So switching over to the trustees' budget. Trustees' budget is a budget that's really scaled back from what it used to be. That budget includes the coverage of insurances for the arena of $92,000. There's a professional service line of $10,000. That's if we need to bring any third-party consultants in, or if we have to call upon the lawyers for a particular item. I got $1,000 covering board meetings throughout the year. And then the management agreement that we have with Oak Point, that is a agreement that there is an incentive based on a certain number of benchmarks. And if those benchmarks are met or come close to, it is prorated, and there's an annual incentive that we provide the management company. The commissioners typically handle that in either July or September, and that's done on an annual basis. This year, there's $95,000 budgeted into that. I think we're trending, the last I saw, we're trending a little lower. I think we're trending about $87,000 right now. But as the budget was moving through the processes, we really couldn't touch that 95. So in totality, the trustees' budget is $198,000 for the coming fiscal year. With that said, I'll answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Any questions for Jim?
Move passage.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah, Jim, you said that, see if I get this right, that the insurance for the cross-insurance arena is separate from the county?
It is. When you have cross-insurance on the top of your building, you kind of have to go through them.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Any other questions or comments?
Wonder whether they want to take over the risk pool, but other than that. Yeah, I do have,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Cludier.
Steve, Sue, and I all had the honor and pleasure of having a chair's role at some point or other in the renovation of this facility, and of course, we all read the consultant's report of how magnificent the finances would be forever once it was rebuilt, and of course, we had been around long enough to know that that was complete nonsense and shouldn't be read with anything other than a grain of salt. But this is actually a very good outcome, and they've really developed out of the pandemic, especially to do a very nice job there. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community that appreciate it. We all kind of remember the hockey horrors of a few years ago, and in contrast, we now have a franchise that seems to be community-friendly and gaining more interest from the community every day that they're in business. So, and the programming has expanded and improved. So, I'm delighted to support this, and I'm glad that some of the things that we thought might happen, in fact, have happened, so.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the cross-insurance arena budget, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Matter carries 5-0. And our next item is adoption of the county strategic priorities. Manager Gailey.
Thank you. As the commissioners remember, May 16th, we all gathered with the department heads of the county to work through an evening of strategic prioritization up at the Cross Insurance Arena. The evening was probably about close to 4 hours in length. A lot of good ideas were thrown around. It was really a good feeling meeting, from my perspective at least. And a lot of ideas were thrown up on the board, and then we all voted on them. And those that received the most votes were brought forward as our emerging strategic priorities for the next 3 to 5 years. They were more global than we're used to. Back in 2019, we went a little more granular. This year, it's a little more global, and we need to work to boil it down and determine what it really means when we unpackage what we put down. But the 6 include provide and coordinate regional services, provide data, bring funding to the region, build our capacity, foster diversity, equity, and inclusion, and improve external communications. As you can see, there's a lot that can be unpackaged with those broad headings. Moving forward, there will be committees that will be developed around each of these, and that will be their task, is to bring forth some goals and objectives under each category for all of us to work through even more. So this evening, I'm presenting this item for the Commissioner's review again, and adoption of the strategic priorities of 2023. Thank you.
Any questions?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, yeah.
Let's move and seconded. Comments and questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Gordon?
Jim, can you say more about, this, to me, what we're suggesting here is very broad in itself. Can you say more about what the expectation is on your part on forming these committees and how this would be, how you would go about this?
One is that I will have first a committee that is formed that is more of an overarching umbrella. That will be more of an executive committee that will oversee the forming of kind of like the subcommittees to tackle each one of these.
Gotcha, okay.
We won't be doing it all at once. We will be taking 1 or 2 at a time and working through a committee process with them. Once we get some momentum and some pen to paper on figuring out what we want to do, we report back to the commissioners to get your eyes on the direction that we're heading.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? I would just say, Jim, great summary from all the many wide-ranging, great ideas that were thrown out there. It's hard to sort of harness a direction in an organization, but I think you've done a great job as our first step in putting these thoughts into results. And we appreciate all of your efforts in that regard. Call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We adopt the priorities and look forward to our next steps in that process. County comments. So, County Manager Gailey, back to you again.
Thank you. I have a few this evening. First item is we are currently working with a number of towns, kicking the tires on general assistance administration. There were 6 towns that recently just received notice from Opportunity Alliance that Opportunity Alliance was no longer going to offer the service of general assistance administration. Those towns included Cape Elizabeth, Scarborough, New Gloucester, Baldwin, I'm forgetting someone there. But we kind of opened it up to other communities because maybe they needed some help too. So there's about 13 communities that have expressed interest in general assistance administration. We would not be handling or being a central depository of general assistance funding out of the state of Maine. That would still be the towns. We would be putting a body within the towns to administer the general assistance for them. Pretty much taking what Opportunity Alliance was doing and just putting it under the county umbrella. I think we can do it cheaper because we don't have the indirect and direct costs associated with a nonprofit like Opportunity Alliance. And we are currently looking at rolling this out, if possible, for the towns that are being impacted immediately. That would include 5. Scarborough has gone in a different direction, so they would not be searching the service out, but the other 5 would be. And I'm in dialogue with them to see what their needs are, and then trying to package up maybe a few other towns, small towns that would be enough to at least bring a single employee on to do the work of GA administrator. Every town, it's interesting that, coming from the city, we had 2 GA administrators 40 hours a week, every single day. There are a lot of towns out there that have it 3 hours a month, 2 hours a week, so it really runs the gamut. So it's really a puzzle right now to really figure out what the town's needs are around GA, and then package up a program that, one, brings in enough money to cover our costs for hiring and administrating the GA for them. So, still a lot of work to be done on that, but I wanted to update the commissioners that that's something that is in current dialogue right now.
So do you envision this to be something like, or similar to tax assessing?
Very similar, yeah.
Very good. Thanks for your work. That sounds like an exciting possibility.
It could be, especially the growth that we have. We started off with 5 towns, and we have 15 that are interested. So there's some possibility there that this could grow a little bit. But we want to start off small and be successful small.
Excellent.
I just want to check in with the commissioners. Typically, we take August off, and just so that the staff has enough heads up, and we can cram everything on July. Is that something that the commissioners are interested in doing again this year?
Commissioners?
I hate the idea, but I'll go along with it.
Oh, Jim, I'll deliver you cookies at your house.
I'll remind you all and the public who is watching that the county charter requires you to meet at least 11 times a year. So that typically frees up the August as the 12th for the commissioners to take it off.
And it doesn't prevent you from calling a special meeting either.
Correct.
And if necessary, we can have a workshop in later July if we have other business that needs to be at least primed and ready for early September.
In the past, we've had that workshop, and we've had the finance caucus at the end of July.
Right.
I think because of our timing with the new budget, I'm proposing that we do the caucus before the meeting of September 11th. Then if there are new members of the finance committee whose names need to be brought forth, we can bring them forth at the meeting on September 11th and move from there. So
And they'll be working on a budget that's going to take effect July 1, 24, right?
correct.
That's plenty of time.
And that will probably be I would say, a December to March process. We don't want to go too far into 2024, because we also want to be able to share with the towns what the potential impact in budget is. And town meetings start, I think there's one in March, end of March, but most of them are May and June. But it would have been nice to have the luxury of going deep into the spring of 2024, but I don't think that's fair to our communities, and I think we owe it to them to have a number earlier in 2024 than May.
You mean they're gonna work in 24 on the 25 budget?
24, 25 budget,
Right.
sure.
Right.
The July
Starts
1st,
July 1,
2024.
24 and goes to 25.
And so is everyone okay with the August off?
Yes.
Twist your arm?
Oh, let me think about it.
And then lastly,
Together at the lake in Casco to decide.
Okay, yeah.
a few weeks ago, Commissioner Jameson, Commissioner Watonis, and I attended the Greater Portland Council of Governments annual meeting up at St. Joe's College. And the county was recognized by the GPCOG Executive Committee as the Pandemic Recovery Champions of 2023. It was presented to Chairman Jameson, and so we got some hardware to hang on the wall as being the Pandemic Recovery Champions for our role on our thoughtful and well-designed distribution of ARPA funds out into the region. So, nice recognition. And that concludes my comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Alex?
So what's interesting is next time we meet, we're going to be in a new fiscal year. We are finishing up June right now. We will transition right on into the new year. I don't expect any surprises from the 6-month budget in one direction or the other. So that's good. Basically, it's going to be a little bit odd for everyone to be rolling over July 1st, but we'll adapt. And something that was asked of me on this recently that I think a lot of us from municipalities are familiar with, but Commissioner Gordon just mentioned it. Now that we're going into fiscal year basis, everyone typically uses the last year. So this will be what everyone calls the FY25 budget. For those of us who've been on calendar for a long time, though, it takes a little getting used to.
Thank you, Alex. Travis?
In about 2 weeks, Dynamics Consulting Group is coming up. They're the firm that we hired to work on a fire EMS study. So right now, Chief Libby from Wyndham and I are working together to lock down regional meetings, 2 separate meetings, one for chiefs, one for managers, with 2 different teams from Dynamics to gather on the ground information. They'll take that back and apply it to their number crunching and start to develop some useful plans for us in the following weeks. So as soon as those meetings are locked down, I'll share them with all of you. You're all welcome to attend as many as you want.
Great, thank you.
3 to 5 meetings probably, chiefs and managers.
And what's going on in Augusta?
It's funny, a month ago, I gave a report and I said all of these things are gonna happen in the next couple of days, and the report is almost identical. I still don't have a budget out of appropriations. Commissioner Gordon and I were kind of
Commiserating.
stealing your thunder, but commiserating a little. I think about the likelihood that we'll see anything extra for jails this year. Otherwise, there's still not punting enough things or killing enough things to finish in the coming days like they're expected to, but they've been in a special session since spring, so none of this, as far as statutory adjournment matters. I think that you'll see them start to speed up eventually because they'll want to be done by the 4th of July, but they'll probably be cutting it close.
Very good. Thank you. Amy?
HR is still working on recruitment and hiring and staffing. Some departments we're struggling with still. So we've been putting a lot of effort in new advertising and new push ads and everything we can to bring people into the county. In some departments, we are having still a high level of turnover, which is concerning, but we're trying to respond to that.
Very good. Catherine?
I don't have anything this time.
Commissioner Cloutier?
I'm glad to hear that this matter related to GA is kind of wandered towards our sphere, and we're trying to do something about that. And I think, the first priority in our strategic plan that we passed about 10 minutes ago had to do with regional activity, and that's certainly something that requires some expertise, requires some capacity, and if that goes as well as it could, then there'll be another element of the service we provide, not just to the towns, but also to the citizens, and that's a core value that I've always had, and I think it's good. There will develop a time, I'm sure, when we wonder whether we're serving the ex-urban areas more than the entire county itself, but that's a conversation for another time. And probably not a time that's coming anytime soon. So, I'm very happy that that happened, you know, I think that's great progress. I came on this commission at a time when that never would have happened. So, you know, it's good, it's progress. And I was really taken by the $80,000 plus or minus donation that we approved tonight, which we received from that congregation. You know, they've been very active in a variety of ways for a number of years, and you know, it shows that they're still at it and still at it hard, and good for them. So, and that's it. Happy, we'll come back in July, and then that'll be that. The last thing I would mention is I'm glad that Greater Portland COG recognized that appropriating the ARPA funds and all the work that was done on that was a job well done, but I really remember best about our pandemic work that, you know, we had the Civic Center all set up to be the third major hospital in Portland as we needed it, if we did. And to me, that was as close to heroic as you're ever going to get. So, you know, I thought that was, you know, that was our moment when we showed that we were going to provide some substantial, you know, leadership on the issue, as opposed to worrying about who was going to be in charge of what and who's going to get blamed for what. And so I really take my hat off to Jim, who was walking around in an empty building half the time around here, and of course Alex and Travis too. And you know, I thought it was a great effort, and if I were given out a plaque, that's what mine would be about.
Thank you, Jim. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I have a couple of things. The first thing, and I'm kind of disappointed that the sheriff took off, is my gratitude, you know, goes out, you know, to his staff, especially on the road staff. They've had a real couple of bad accidents, you know, with weeks and stuff like that, and it's never always easy. As I actually did call the sheriff, or I would texted him, you know, to see if I could help, but he was all set. You know, it's a tough time of year out there, and I think this is the worst time of the year for, you know, with the driving, and I think everybody, you know, needs to pay attention on the roads, you know, and stuff like that. So my hats go out, you know, to his staff. But the other thing is I had the honor and the privilege to attend with the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Newell Correctional Center up in my area. And it was really very nice. There were, you know, a lot of dignitaries there, where the governor was there, where Bill Diamond was there. I mean, I think everybody was there. So it was a nice time, and it was a lovely day, and I did not take with the tour because I really didn't want to see if I knew anybody in there. So I figured I would stay away. So that it was nice, and if you ever get, you know, with the opportunity, and I did have the opportunity, you know, to talk to with the Commissioner of Corrections, and you know, we gave him, you know, my thoughts on with the jail and all of that. So it was a good time, and I will hope, you know, that we can do something, you know, with the Department of Corrections on our building. So well, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to reiterate some of the issues that Jim has spoken about, and the thought of getting into general assistance, I think, is just outstanding. The one remark that I kind of swallow deep at is, yes, we're helping the outer communities, and mainly, I guess, it's because of their needs and wants, and another issue is size. I think the thing that we as commissioners and our staff is going to have to get prepared for is when one of the large communities wants it to happen, because that's going to be a large investment for ourselves, and we're going to have an elephant to eat rather than just a sandwich in the weeds.
Well, one of them's already come forward. They're phase 4.
They're faithful.
No wonder we're taking August off.
Oh, we know somebody that is.
But it brings to a point that, something that I totally agree with, and it's getting talked about in the Maine County Commissioners Association, and it's no secret, I go to a number of meetings on Saturdays. And regionalization is something that the citizens are asking for. And I'll bring the topic up and because I want to see their reaction. And it's interesting because the first thing is, well, you have these people that have jobs and positions, and you're going to have to find a way to be able to have them have a job or a position afterwards if you did that, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes down to it, it's, yes, we don't see a way that our communities are going to be able to run without having a vast increase in costs unless we regionalize, whether the county does it or they do it together in some manner or whatever, but it's got to happen. So I pass that on to ourselves. I think we're a little bit ahead of the game in that we had the strategic plan and talked about some of those issues, and we're beginning to look at where our goals are going to go, and I suspect it's going to be in that area. So I thank the leadership of the county here for making that time and those topics and that discussion available.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I'm going to continue with the theme that we're hearing about or discussing together. And I just want to say I'm really impressed with the fact that, as county government thinking about regionalization, there's just great relationships happening within all these communities, because you can't even start these conversations without integrity and relationships and starting conversations that maybe at some point come to fruition. And I think it's really impressive to be able to, kind of put things aside and say, we're here to help, we're part of a common solution, and to bring people together and find out what are those opportunities where we're really serving citizens of these towns through regionalization. So I just find it fascinating. I'm super excited to be part of this group that is, in my opinion, very forward-thinking for what some people say, oh, county government, it's not very slow to react, or it's not forward-thinking. I found that completely opposite from my 5 months here or so. And I just want to say it's a lot of hard work for people to see that and to kind of break out of that maybe. It's a myth, really. It's not a true fact, but to really be assertive with these activities. So I'm excited to see what the future will bring. I thought the goal setting was excellent as well. And I think, to Jim's point, it was very global, and maybe other years it's been more granular, but in some respects, I think you'll always get to the granular because people are here wanting to do the work. So I'm not, I think it's tougher when you have that global look, but I think there's going to be some great things coming from that work over the next 3 to 5 years, and happy to support it and learn it and continue to listen and learn here at the county, so thank you. Last thing, sorry.
Yeah,
Happy
no,
graduation to all those May, June graduations from pre-K to college. A lot of folks took that last step, and they're off into the world now, so congratulations to all the graduates. Have a safe summer.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. I just have a few comments, and I'll take the baton and finish the race. And I think we've all talked about the work that the county is doing and has done on regionalizing services, providing opportunities to be a hub for our communities to share resources and to serve, most importantly, their constituents in a variety of very creative and new ways, at least new ways for county government to be the spur of that activity. And the work that's going on now and the discussions that Travis mentioned, potential regional activity for fire and EMS, and Jim mentioned the fact that general assistance services. When I started as a commissioner 11 years ago, all of that stuff was just hope, innuendo, and rumor. But because of the efforts of town leaders, most importantly of our leaders here in county government, it's come to reality. And now we have county government in Cumberland County that's providing a host of services to our communities, and we're the hub. And so I would encourage all you residents out there to contact your town members and to encourage them about regionalization of services, because it really can and does work. And we're going to be the example in this state, continue to be the example in this state that it has been and will continue to be successful. And to reiterate Commissioner Smith's comments, schools are out, congratulations to all the graduates, but also, let's also be careful as the children will be out from school, there'll be more kids around on the roads, they'll be playing, activities, etc. So let's have a watchful eye out for them for all safety reasons. And good luck, congrats to the families who have graduates. Good luck to families who have their kids home for the summer. Have a great experience, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you. And that, I believe, concludes our meeting. I need a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.